Imagine a Fortune 500 company. It has a marketing department, a help desk, a bug bounty program, and a clear, hierarchical management structure. It operates with a level of professional efficiency that would be the envy of any startup. Now, strip away the legality. Replace the boardroom with a hidden server room, the legitimate product with malicious code, and the shareholders with a network of anonymous criminals spread across the globe. You are now looking at the organizational chart of LockBit, an entity that for years did not just participate in the digital underworld, it defined it. They were the undisputed kings of the ransomware industry, an organization that took the chaotic, uncoordinated crime of early cyber extortion and industrialized it into a global, high-stakes enterprise. The story of LockBit begins in the shadows of the late 2010s. When they first appeared, they were known simply as the ABCD virus. It was a crude, rudimentary tool used for local attacks. But something changed in their trajectory. The operators behind this project realized that the real money wasn't in coding the perfect malware, the real money was in creating the perfect system. They pivoted to the ransomware as a service model, or ROS. This was their masterstroke. Instead of conducting every hack themselves, they built a platform and invited others to use it. They became the infrastructure providers for a global army of independent contractors known as affiliates. LockBit provided the decryption tools, the negotiation portals, the data leak sites, and the technical support, while the affiliates provided the targets, the infiltration skills, and the raw, dirty work of breaching networks. This division of labor turned ransomware from a niche nuisance into a systemic global threat. LockBit made it possible for a small-time hacker with limited technical skills to attack a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They lowered the barrier to entry. If you were a criminal in a remote part of the world, you didn't need to be a coding genius, you just needed to be able to follow the instructions in the LockBit manual. This scalability allowed them to attack dozens of organizations simultaneously, creating a volume of crime that was, quite frankly, unprecedented. As LockBit evolved through its iterations, from 1.0 to 2.0, and eventually the highly sophisticated 3.0, the group's arrogance grew alongside their capability. They weren't just running a business, they were building a brand. They used marketing tactics that would be at home in a Silicon Valley firm. They named their automated data exfiltration tool, StealBit, a piece of software that was, by all technical accounts, incredibly efficient at slurping up terabytes of sensitive data before the ransomware was even deployed. They turned the extortion game into a precision science. They knew exactly how much downtime cost a company, and they priced their ransom demands to be just high enough to be painful, but just low enough that paying seemed like a rational business decision. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of LockBit's rise was their sense of humor, a dark, twisted irony that characterized their interactions with the security industry. At the height of their power, they launched a bug bounty program. Yes, the premier ransomware gang in the world officially offered to pay ethical hackers and researchers for finding flaws in their malware and their leak site. They were essentially daring the cybersecurity world to try and stop them. They mocked authorities, taunted security analysts on social media, and operated with a level of visibility that bordered on the absurd. It was a projection of total power. They wanted the world to know that they were not just stealing data, they were running a sophisticated organization that no one could effectively touch. This hubris was fueled by their innovative approach to double extortion. In the early days of ransomware, the threat was simple: pay us, or you don't get your files back. But LockBit mastered the art of the secondary threat. They understood that in the modern corporate world, encrypted files were an annoyance, but a public leak of sensitive client data was a PR catastrophe. By stealing the data before encrypting the servers, they gave themselves a second lever. Even if a victim had pristine, offline backups and could restore their system without paying, the threat of seeing their legal documents, employee records, and trade secrets dumped on a public dark web site forced them to the negotiating table. LockBit didn't just hold the data hostage, they held the company's reputation hostage. However, the very infrastructure that made LockBit the dominant player in the industry also became their greatest vulnerability. Their reliance on a centralized, professionalized infrastructure meant that they were creating a massive footprint. They needed servers to host their leak sites, they needed chat portals to negotiate with victims, and they needed internal administrative interfaces for their army of affiliates. They were a business, and businesses have architectures. And architectures can be mapped, infiltrated, and dismantled. The turning point arrived with Operation Kronos. For months, law enforcement agencies, led by the FBI, the UK's National Crime Agency, and a coalition of global partners, had been playing the longest game in cyber history. They didn't just want to block an IP address or shut down a server. They wanted to dismantle the organism. They infiltrated the very heart of the LockBit network, gaining administrative access to their back-end systems. They watched the affiliates log in, they mapped the connections between the developers and the foot soldiers, and they cataloged the vulnerabilities in the group's own infrastructure. When the takedown finally happened, it wasn't just a shutdown, it was a theater of war. The agencies seized the leak sites and replaced them with a law enforcement splash page, effectively using LockBit's own real estate to broadcast the group's failure to the entire world. They flooded the hackers' dashboards with leaked internal data, turning the tables on the extortionists. The criminals who logged in to manage their attacks found themselves locked out, looking at a countdown clock managed by the FBI. It was the ultimate professional humiliation. The group that had mocked the industry was now the punchline of a global security operation.